2 weeks.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So we're going to start from the basics. So that's good. We're going to talk about Windows 8, just high level, not too deep. What's different visually on Windows 8 versus Windows 7 and previous Windows operating systems, and what you can do to get to your work and what you need to do as opposed to dealing with the new modern screen and not knowing what to do when you turn on the computer. So at least for the sake of the recording, we're going to really start with the basics and then push forward and get to talking about customizing the colors on your computer so that you have a nice, good, high contrast. All right, so with Windows 8, certainly make sure you've done all the Windows updates, and it sounds like you have Windows 8.1, so that's a good thing. And also make sure you're up to date with ZoomText, and to do that, of course, you bring up the ZoomText user interface and click on Help, and then check for updates. But no need to do that right now.
I think I'm fairly up to date. I just got it a couple weeks ago when I got the computer.
Okay, very good. All right, so what's visually different about Windows 8.1? You've already seen that. When you turn on the computer, first of all, you've got that screen, and I have found myself even now just staring at that screen waiting for something else to come up, not realizing that I have to push one of the keyboard buttons to bring up the login screen. So that's one thing that's different. You have to actually do something to get anywhere. All right, so after you've logged in, you've got the traditional Windows desktop screen that you're familiar with from the past, but you've also probably run into that modern screen, either by accident or intention. And maybe you forget how to get back to the desktop screen. Well, a couple of different ways to do it is probably the easiest is just simply hit the Windows key on the keyboard, and that toggles you back and forth between the new modern screen and your traditional desktop screen.
Oh, wow.
Now, so nice simple thing to remember. And the other thing is you could change the size of the graphics or icons on the modern screen, and there is one that is for the desktop. So if you really prefer to use your mouse, you could make the desktop graphic bigger as opposed to the rest of them, put it in the top, move it to the top left corner, and be able to just click on that with your mouse to get to the desktop screen. Otherwise, simply hitting the Windows key is a good option. Now, other visual differences, there's no start button. And so, you have to deal with different ways to get into your programs. And we'll talk about that. But some of the very must-memorize shortcut keys I find in Windows 8, and some of them go back to many versions of previous Windows, but it really doesn't matter. And I've listed them in the document that I will send you. The first, of course, being that Windows key, toggling back and forth from the modern screen to the traditional desktop screen. You can also get to the desktop screen by doing Windows plus the D key for desktop. So Windows D will always get you back to the desktop screen with all the icons. The Windows E key, as in the past, will get you to the File Explorer.
And you can open more than one, which is nice. So if you're trying to look for something and move it by drag and drop, as many times as you press Windows E, it's just going to keep opening the File Explorer.
Ah, that's a good idea. All right, and another one, and I believe this is new to Windows 8, is Windows Q. If you do Windows Q, it'll bring up a search edit box at the top right corner of the screen where you can type in anything for searching for anything on your computer, such as a program or file. And that kind of, I guess, would replace in previous versions where you'd click on the Start button at the bottom left corner and that edit box would come up. So this is pretty much the same thing, a little more, I would say, robust in what you can do with it. So I believe the quickest way really to open a program in Windows 8 is to do the Windows Q and then just start typing. For example, Control Panel would open Control Panel, or Outlook for Microsoft Outlook, or Word for Microsoft Word. And then you can, if you get used to this way of opening programs, you can kind of keep your desktop uncluttered by not creating all those icons for opening different programs. But you can still do that, of course. And another hotkey you should probably know is Alt F4. So let's say you have Microsoft Word open. You can quickly close it by doing Alt F4.
Lori, right now I have 3 versions of File Explorer open. There are 3 sessions, so I'm just closing them one at a time with Alt F4. Then the last time I do it, you're ready to keep talking about how to shut down.
Okay. So as different programs come into focus, as you close other programs, you can just keep doing Alt F4 until all the programs are closed and you're at the desktop screen. And then the next time you do Alt F4, the shutdown dialog box will come up. So that's the easiest way to get to the shutdown of your computer, is just keep doing Alt F4 on the desktop screen. All right, now something to keep in mind. I don't know if you've used any of the apps on the modern screen, but what I've been told by our tech support is these apps on the modern screen are much different than the, I don't know a better term, but the full application that you might be used to. For example, if you click on Mail on the modern screen, that's much different than opening Microsoft Outlook. And in addition to that, apps on the modern screen typically have issues, or accessibility technology has issues with apps on the modern screen.
Yeah, I already found that out.
Okay. So if you're a ZoomText user or other accessibility software, what we recommend is just simply stay away from the modern screen. So that's why that Windows key is so helpful. All right. Another thing I wanted to mention is that ZoomText 10.1 was developed and optimized for Windows 8, so you should see better ZoomText performance than in Windows 7, for example, using Windows 10.1, because it was developed for it, taking advantage of all the new software and hardware of a new Windows 8 machine. All right, now the colors. That's always actually, it's more than colors, it's legibility, which of course, if you're a ZoomText user, that's of utmost importance, is being able to read the text. And for example, if you look at the text under the icons on your desktop screen, you notice the shadow effect. And I don't know if that was in Windows 7, but I find it very annoying in Windows 8. And as you magnify it, it doesn't help that much. It makes it bigger, but you still can't read it because it's got that shadow effect. So we're going to talk about just kind of maximizing the legibility via the Windows settings so that you are now able to actually use your computer. And since you're a ZoomText user, you're already familiar with using the ZoomText color enhancement. For example, I like the reverse video color enhancement. But that doesn't dig in deep to the operating system as far as being able to change the particular font styles and colors and contrast. Well, it does affect the contrast. But you might not find it enough for you in Windows 8. And in the past, I've played a lot with the Windows high contrast theme, starting with Windows 98. And there's always been issues with it, making it almost not worth the trouble. And I find that all the way through Windows 7. In particular, in Windows 7, as you turn off, sometimes you have to turn off a high contrast theme for Windows, and it leaves remnants of the high contrast theme on the screen. So it's not really worth it to me to use it in Windows 7. However, I've played around with it in Windows 8, and I find, although there are still issues with a high contrast theme, I find it worth my while. For example, it does get rid of that shadow effect on the text below your icons. So we're going to go through how to select a high contrast theme in Windows. I just want to always be clear on when I'm talking about a ZoomText color enhancement versus a Windows color enhancement. So now we are strictly talking about Windows. All right. So what you want to do before playing with Windows themes is you can still use ZoomText, but make sure you don't have a color enhancement on. So you could go to your ZoomText user interface and click on the color button and make sure there's a check box to the left of the word normal. Or use your, if you know you have a color enhancement on in ZoomText, simply do Control-Shift-C, and that will turn off your ZoomText color enhancement. All right, that way you know you're at normal colors, and now you can play with the Windows colors to see what impact that has on seeing your computer screen. So we're going to do a Windows Q to bring up the search edit box. And all these instructions are in the document I'm going to send you. So Control Panel, and we're going to just open up Control Panel by pressing the Enter key. And then we're going to go to Personalization, which you can type the letter P until you get to Personalization, and then press the Enter key. Now in Personalization, you can hit the down arrow key until you get to that kind of row of high contrast themes. And the first one you'll get to is high contrast number 1. And you should take a look at the colors there, see if you like it, and then if not, arrow to the right until you find the one you like the best. The one I happen to like the best, which is fairly common, is the high contrast black. So once you arrow over to the high contrast black, you can hit the Enter key, and that will apply this color theme to your computer. And the first thing it does is, well, it does everything at once, but the first thing you'll notice is the desktop screen will be much more visible because the background is black and the text is white and there's no shadow behind the text. So that's a big plus. And by the way, this is the only way you can get rid of that shadow effect is by using a Windows high contrast theme. So that's one big advantage of this theme. And now we're going to, we can further customize this high contrast theme by going back into personalization, and if you can tab down to the color icon at the bottom of the personalization screen, or simply click on it with your mouse, and you'll see some Windows items that you can further customize. And if you're like me, you have played with Windows customizations, color customizations for years, and from Windows 7 and previous, this screen looked much different. It was actually more customizable. There were more details that you could actually customize. However, the Windows high contrast theme actually automatically select a pretty good, legible, plain, basic font, pretty large, pretty good high contrast. So I think you'll find you don't have to customize it. You won't miss those customizations as much as you think you might. But one thing I do change in the high contrast black theme is the selected text. By default, the selected text is a yellow text on a gray background, which is not very easy to see. So I changed that background color to black. No, I'm sorry, the foreground color to black, the text, and the background color to a pale yellow. And think of like your inbox as you're arrowing down your inbox. You've already got the black background with a white text with all your listed email. However, the email that you have in focus, you don't want that to be black as well, or you wouldn't be able to see it. So you want to have a little bit of a contrasting color. That's why I choose a pale yellow and then with a black text on top of it. But customize it as you wish, and you can play around with it at some point. But that's all that we're going to change for now. And now you want to make sure you save that theme, or I'm sorry, save that customization to the colors, and now you want to save that theme. So you want to right-click on the unsaved theme, choose Save Theme, and name it. So now what you have is a pretty good high contrast theme, and I think you'll find you'll be able to see the screen better. But what I want to go back to is talking about the advantages and disadvantages of using this high contrast theme. Now, one of the advantages of using a high contrast theme provided by Windows is that you can customize specific Windows colors like we just did. It's the only way to get rid of the shadow effect on those text labels on your desktop screen. And I found it's also the only way to get rid of the gray in the taskbar to make it become black. I don't know why, but with using a Windows, one of the Windows regular themes, not high contrast, you simply can't get rid of the gray in the taskbar and other areas, I believe, like in some buttons. So even using the ZoomText reverse video, because of the Windows color that you're starting with, like a gray, you can't get it to be simply black. So that's one advantage of the high contrast theme of Windows, is getting the taskbar to be black with a white text. And the other big advantage of using a Windows high contrast theme is that it doesn't affect the image colors. For example, if you're looking at a photo on a web page, that photo is going to remain regular colors, even though all the text, all the space around it may be black with white text. So that's kind of a nice advantage. Now, disadvantages. One thing that you might consider a disadvantage is that with the Windows theme, it's not tied to ZoomText. So therefore, if more than one person is using the computer, say your husband, and you don't have separate logins, then they might be really annoyed by all the customizations that you just made. I'm going to tell you about a shortcut key where you can toggle this theme off. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the other disadvantages. Now, as far as ZoomText, an advantage of using that for your changing your colors, like the reverse video mode, is that when your husband, for example, is on the computer, he probably won't be using ZoomText, so he won't be having to deal with your strange colors. And also there's a quick shortcut key, Control-Shift-C, for turning your ZoomText color enhancement off. So you might consider that a disadvantage of the Windows high contrast theme, or not if you have separate logins. Another disadvantage of using the Windows high contrast theme is that on web pages or even some applications, you run into issues where some things may be invisible, either a text graphic or simply text, because the web page developer doesn't know that you're using a high contrast theme. So what you run into on some web pages is you might run into white text on white text or black text on black text, which of course would never be able to see. For another example is in Internet Explorer. Well, I'm not going to talk about that yet, but basically you can switch back and forth from the Windows high contrast theme to your latest Windows theme. And the way to do that is there's a shortcut key, which I just discovered a couple weeks ago, and it's really what makes me want to use high contrast theme as my standard default, because I can switch out of it with a hotkey. And that hotkey is Alt-Shift Print Screen.
Lori, I'm just going to make the Internet Explorer not full screen so that you can see that the high contrast is really off. We're on the CNN page that you and I looked at earlier, and it's a black background.
Okay.
So even though I turned off the scheme, it doesn't look like I turned it off, but you can see the yellow desktop, so you know that the Windows high contrast theme is off.
Okay. All right, so that hotkey, Alt-Shift-Print Screen, it toggles between your latest high contrast theme, even if you've customized it, to the latest Windows theme that you used, even if you had, you know, it doesn't matter which Windows theme, just whatever non-high contrast theme that you use. So it's kind of handy, but there are issues with it, unfortunately. Toggling back and forth between the two, turning high contrast theme off, sometimes it doesn't switch all the way. It's better than it was in Windows 7, but it's still something to be aware of. For example, in Internet Explorer, do you have the file menu up, Kathy?
I don't.
Okay. I always suggest...
Oh, I do. I'm sorry. I do.
Okay. If you don't have the file menu visible in Internet Explorer, which is how it is by default, it's not visible, I would suggest making it visible. And to do that, you would right-click on the Internet Explorer title bar and left-click on menu bar. And now you have that menu bar that you used to, File, View, Favorites, etc. So, Kathy, I'm going to have you do the Alt-Shift-Print Screen
To get rid of. Okay.
Okay. And did that turn on high contrast?
That turned it off.
That turned it off. Okay. Is the menu bar still visible?
No, let me bring it back.
No, you can't. So this is a bug. All right. So the file menu disappears. All right. And so that's a problem. And the only way I've found to get it back is actually to close Internet Explorer and open it again.
Yeah, because even doing F5 to refresh doesn't bring it back.
Right. So major disadvantage, but as long as you're aware of it, then you know, maybe you can deal with it.
So maybe
yes.
if you don't know you're going to be in Internet Explorer and you don't want that on, you would turn it off before you go in there.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So it may be something that you never want to use in Internet Explorer. So you would just turn it off before you go into Internet Explorer. In fact, what you could do, this may be confusing, but what you could do is, no, I'm not even going to mention it. That would be too confusing. And Doreen, I don't know if you've ever played with the colors within Internet Explorer that affects web pages. Like
no, I've done it in Windows. I've never done it in Internet Explorer. I didn't know I could.
Okay, that's probably a good thing. But for other users, if you've ever gone into Tools and then Internet Options at the bottom, there's two areas where you can actually affect the colors within a web page. However, and those are via the color button at the bottom left or the accessibility button at the bottom right. However, I strongly suggest you just leaving them in their default settings. The reason being is that you will run into even more trouble. And that's where I'll leave that. So in the instructions I'll be emailing you, there'll be instructions on going into those settings and getting them back to their default in case anyone else has played around with those. So as much as I thought those settings in there would be helpful to me, because one is labeled accessibility and one is labeled colors, I found that it's more trouble than they're worth, because you will run into issues depending on the web page. And as I said, web page developers do not test using a Windows high contrast mode or these other color settings within Internet Explorer. So I suggest staying away from that. Okay, I think we're at the time I'll review my stuff, but in the meantime, I believe I'm ready for questions from the audience. Doreen.
I don't know. Right now I can't think of any. I do love the Windows shortcuts, the keys. I've always used my mouse, so even with my laptop I use a mouse. But I love that I could go to that search menu and do it that way. I did have a lot of issues and had to call in, oh my gosh, 4 or 5 times right after I got this computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned some things, you know, what I can't do and what I can do. And also when I did an update, the computer did an update, Windows update, it messed up everything and I had to start over from scratch, and it was like a week after I had it.
Oh.
And reinstall everything. So last Friday I was reinstalling ZoomText and everything else, so that was a major pain. Do you know anything about, there's a, it's not Dropbox, it's Open something. My documents, if I save my documents, they're not going to my documents. They're going to this file that
OneDrive.
Yeah.
OneDrive. Yeah.
I don't like that.
I think I noticed that too. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way to, so it's automatically choosing OneDrive
Yeah.
in Word?
Yeah, because I've got Microsoft Word 2007.
Okay, let me check on that for you. Maury has your email address. If I find something, I'll send you a note.
Okay. I had a hard time finding my files.
Yep, I've done that by mistake.
So, and I'm afraid to delete it, you know. If I delete it, I might lose everything, so.
Right.
I didn't do that either, so. My mother had a Windows 8 laptop, and I could never figure out how to use it because, of course, I couldn't see the screen. Hang on a second. I'll have to call him back. But I was able to change things so she could see it a little better. I think I did the high contrast because she's older. But I was very afraid to get this computer because I didn't know if I would know how to, work with it. But it's been really nice. And your guys actually fixed my computer so I do not have to log in on startup.
Oh, okay. Since you're the only user, yeah, why bother?
Yeah, I think it was Brenton because I hated that.
Okay.
Absolutely hated to have to log in, so he changed that for me. I think it was James the other day that helped me download ZoomText again, and I don't know what he did, but it goes to my regular home screen like the Windows 7 almost all the time. It doesn't go to that other one anymore.
Oh, when you boot up, it goes to your desktop instead of the... Yeah, mine does that too also now. Maybe it stays where it
might have been a Windows update, or maybe the fact that does ZoomText auto start?
Yeah.
Maybe because ZoomText is a regular program that runs on the desktop, we're dragging it there. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't do that when I installed it the first week.
Oh my
But
gosh.
after I reinstalled it on Friday, and James came in and did some things, and yeah. And maybe
Now
it's
it does.
because I deleted a bunch of those apps too. There's hardly any apps on that screen anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So now you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But much user-friendly now.
Good. I'm glad the guys are able to help you with stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
and
you
I
said
know,
you're.
sorry, go ahead.
You said you're using Office 2007.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I wondered how. Usually when you get a new laptop, you've got, if you buy it with Office, it comes with the latest. So I always wondered how previous versions work on the new operating system.
There may be some tracking issues. Have you noticed that, like with Word or Outlook, that ZoomText doesn't track properly in 2007, Office 2007?
It's not too bad.
Okay.
I just didn't want to buy that new one. I already had these. There was no sense in buying new ones if I didn't have to. And then they had the one on here where you got to pay yearly for it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do that either. I just deleted it and put my own in.
Yeah.
But I asked the guys there first before I did it, and they said it was okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I could go up to 2013, but I wouldn't do that new one that you have to pay a fee every year for it.
Oh, the Office 365.
Yeah, I don't need that. I just need Excel, Outlook, and Word. That's all I use.
Yeah.
So very good.
And I know I'm going to have some little quirks here and there, because always going to have that when you guys roll out a new product with all the little changes. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm finding on my Windows 7 computer, I can't leave my computer running. Like, the only time I'd shut it off is on a weekend if we'd leave and go somewhere, because I work from home. So I just leave it on. And I'm finding that if I do that, I go in there, my ZoomText quits working, or I have issues, so I have to reboot my computer every day.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I don't know why that's happening, but it's since I put the new ZoomText on.
Yeah. And do you what kind of color manipulation have you done in the past? Do you typically use a ZoomText color enhancement? Or
I usually leave that at normal.
okay.
I don't use the high contrast too much.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how, I was experiencing some of those issues too, where you would go into something and you couldn't see anything, because it was white on white or black on black. So I don't use those. I try to set the brightness down. I lower my brightness and up my contrast and try to use, I usually use like this yellow that you guys are using right now. I could never use it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I usually use a blue, a medium to dark blue.
Yeah. I think she's on the Windows default right now. That's why it's bright out. Yeah, I can't deal with that either.
Yeah, I can't deal with the glare.
Yeah, I had it set as something else, and I hadn't saved it, so that's why I lost it when I changed to high contrast.
Yeah, and see that blue, that light blue, that's too much.
That's too much too?
Yeah. I usually go with the darker colors.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention, getting back to the issues you might run into with the high contrast mode on web pages. One prime example is Priceline.com. There's a lot of the images that are missing, like the buttons across the top, one of them saying list view. That'll be completely invisible, gone with the high contrast mode. And the search, when you type in a city and dates, and there's a button below it that says search. With a high contrast mode, the word search is there, and the background is black, and then the whole background is black, but there's no like line around it like to indicate that it's a button.
Mm-hmm.
And also the star ratings, the little graphic of the stars do not show up. So now I'm remembering the reason I told you not to play with the Internet Explorer colors is because when I run into that situation using high contrast mode, I will toggle off the high contrast by doing the Alt-Shift print screen so I can see how the web page is supposed to look. Like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And so the Alt-Shift print screen will turn that high contrast off, turn it back to normal colors, and if I have fooled around with those colors in Internet Explorer, in the tools, Internet options, the color button, and the accessibility button, there's some check marks in there, then when I look at the web page in normal colors, it's no longer normal as the web page developer intended. You've fiddled with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're not going to know what it's supposed to look like. So that's the reason I suggest not going in there.
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was, I mean, I go in there a lot, you know, when I'm working and having to clear up my cookies and stuff, but I've never really looked at a lot of those settings clearly. Our IT people set our computers, our home computers for work, so we don't mess with that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I
Right.
would have never even thought about that.
Right.
I don't think this 8.1, I'm not real happy with the personalization it has on it.
And why is that?
It doesn't have enough like Windows 7 did.
Okay.
But then, like you said, you could spend hours and hours and hours in there changing fonts and this and that and this and that before you ever get it where you need it.
You can really go around in circles.
Oh, yeah, and I've done that. I've done that.
Yeah.
And then if something happens to your computer and you have to start over, you don't write everything down, you know. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of want to do the minimum best.
Yeah.
Would be my advice. The minimum best.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the best. Because as you were saying, you can just go around in circles.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm going to use that search box a lot now that I know that.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's going to be my friend. In fact, I'll probably put a sticky note here somewhere for a week or so until I've got that down, because that is amazing. That's going to save tons of time.
Right.
And it's starting when you do open it with Control Q. There's a drop down below that, and right now Control Q, you're searching everywhere, but you can change that too. You can look at settings, files, web images, and web videos.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you didn't want to search everywhere, I usually just leave it on everywhere, but occasionally it's nice to know there are other options.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot on this computer right now. I just bought it basically to take to the lake with me. Check email, Facebook, stuff like that, play games, relax.
Wait, where do you live? You're going to the lake at this time of year?
Oh, no, I'm getting ready.
Oh, I was going to be jealous.
I live in northern Indiana.
Ah, okay.
So, it's, in fact, we're supposed to get some bitter cold, and I can tell it's coming in, but,
yeah.
And, but we're counting down the days to April 1st.
Yes, same here.
When they turn the water on and we can, I mean, we'll be up there before that. We've been going up in the winter. We just haul water and do dishes in a dish pan.
Right.
and the shower's open in the bathhouse, so we can go down there if we have to. So, yeah, we just bought it in August, end of August, so we haven't had a whole summer up there yet. So we're really excited.
Nice.
And I'm even contemplating quitting my job so I can stay up there full time during the summer.
Oh, nice.
Or get internet service up there, and because I only work 3 or 4 hours a day, so.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that was the reason for this computer, was so that there's certain things you can't do on a tablet.
Yeah, I was curious why. Like producing work, right? Like Word documents.
Mm-hmm.
And
some